So the history of cinema has often been written by the same hands and through the same lenses and leaving many voices unheard. Today we celebrate the women who are reclaiming the narratives and redefine representation. And it's not only about empowerment, it's about ownership and visibility and the power of storytelling. And this is the next generation of filmmakers. They don't ask if they get a seat on the table, they'll be building their own table. So please welcome the founder of Habebo Studios, a member of the César Award Community Committee from Martinique, Guadeloupe and France, Betty Sulty-Johnson. Yes, take a seat. Also, welcome with a loud applause the founder of African International Film Festival in Lagos, Nigeria, Chioma Ude. Tomorrow I'm going to book a flight for the festival in Lagos, I'm telling you. Yeah. Really a great woman to have here. The talent agent for industry entertainment in USA, Dana Sims. She's in the taxi, you'll be here in a moment. And the president of São Paulo Audiovisual Company in Brazil, Lyara de Oliveira. Bem-vindo. And the United Nations Young Leader for Sustainable Development Goals in Sudan, Mayada Adil. She's there, I think. And this panel is hosted by a colleague. She's an actress, she's a host, she speaks many languages. She's from Germany. Paula Essam, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Stage is yours.
So I think we have to make one amendment. Mayada will not be joining us today. So just for that, so we are 4 people, or we will be 4 people at the panel. I'm so happy to have all of you here. You've been briefly introduced, but I want to do that in a little more detail because I think it is really important to understand what you do, where you come from, to understand your perspective on this subject. If I understand it correctly, I'll start with you, Chioma, because you sit in the middle. So you're the founder of the African International Film Festival in Lagos. You've been really working in the Nigerian film industry to kind of bring storytellers to a very professional level to the world. So you want to convey those languages and stories and cultural elements of Nigerians. And I'm really excited to hear your perspective because what you've told me, you were like, we're always doing these panels, but we have to get into action. So I'm really excited to hear your perspective on that. So welcome to the panel. Please, a huge applause for Chioma.
Good morning, everyone. I'm exceptionally happy to be here. It's my first time in Berlin. And I'm finding it really interesting.
Thank you so much. So next up, to my left, we have Betty Sulty-Johnson. So I'll say it in French, because you are from France. As our moderator has already introduced, you are a member of the César Awards Committee, and you recently founded your own production company, Habebo Studios, but before that, you had been working in distribution for a very, very long time. And so I also later on want to understand how these contacts have helped you build an outlook for your company that you're building now. It's really, really exciting, bridging the diaspora with African storytellers. You've already ventured into the markets and built collaborations, so welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
And Lyara de Oliveira, you are the president of the São Paulo Audiovisual Company. So it's the biggest film authority in South America, if I understand correctly. So, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes and no, because I work in the level of the city of São Paulo, and of course we have the state government and also the federal government, but as we are a company, I have this, I can be the representative of Brazil around here today.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And you also hold a PhD in audiovisual studies, so you've really analyzed everything that there is to know about audiovisuality. And yeah, as you said, you are representing Brazil at international events. I understand you have 2 movies at the Berlinale at the moment that you missed the premiere of because you've been just so busy.
Yes, it is. That's the reality. I'm here and I can't even go to the movies, but it's okay. I think we have a huge work to do around here. We are living a very special moment for Brazilian films around the world. So that's why I'm here with my team as well, and everybody's working a lot.
Well, welcome, Lyara.
Thank you.
Big round of applause, please. So, as you can see, the name of the panel is called the HATTIE MCDANIEL Panel. Who of you knows who HATTIE MCDANIEL is? Okay, 3 people, 4 people. So that is a few people, but it could be more because she's actually a really, really important trailblazer for African Americans, for Black people in the whole world, because she was the first Black woman to win an Oscar. But at the same time, she was still being very much discriminated against. So she was a little sidelined. She wasn't allowed to sit at the table with everybody else. But we don't want to focus on those negative aspects, but more see how she was a trailblazer, because she had her own radio show. She advocated for Black rights in the U.S. at that time. She was an activist, and so in that spirit, this discussion should be really empowering. I want to try to make it as specific as possible, because I think that's what we're here for, to not only talk about like generalities, but maybe to really see what specifically can be done to break free film limitations and to challenge the narrative. So welcome to the panel. My name is Paula Essam. I'm the moderator for today. So maybe let's throw a little question in the pod. What does changing the narrative mean for you as Black women in this industry? What have you done in the last years?
I mean, to me, changing the narrative is to take control of your own ownership at the end of the day. And this is what I've done. I think, as you said, I've been working on content distribution for the past 12, 13 years, selling Western content internationally, then African, Afrocentric content. And I was really close to the producers, to the constraints, and I could understand also the needs of the channels, of the platforms. And at some point I said, I need to be more in control. We are to be more in control of our narratives. And the way to do it, from my own perspective, was to create my own production company / distribution company. It was really to be involved. It was really to start understanding the creative and production process from the beginning, rather than waiting for ready-made content to come to me and to sell, which is fine. And I'm still doing that also. But for me, it's really to build rather than selling only. It's to create, synergies, this ecosystem that will, together with producers, and this is why, as a Black French producer based in Paris, for me it's really to bring what I can bring when it comes to secure funding, and to take the authenticity, working together, authenticity plus the money, so we can actually build up together our narrative at the end of the day.
Thank you.
Changing the narrative for me is very diverse. Flying into Berlin from Nigeria, I watched a movie on screen, and it's called He's Not That Into You. And so it started off with the narrative about a little girl, the boy throwing some ice cream at her, and her parents says, oh, he really likes you. And so they went into the different continents and the way women relate to men. And so when it got to Africa, they showed us in front of huts, tying wrapper on our chest, and maybe grinding pepper with stones. So it's something that basic. So that exists, but that's not who we are. And so creating the Africa International Film Festival, not Nigeria, my whole point, my whole mission was really to change the narrative in that aspect, but also position us as business, ready for business, position us telling our own stories, making sure that the world sees us the right way. And so we did a lot, we are doing a lot towards that. Working with all the business executives in America, because I do work with a lot of the streamers, the studios, different producers, bringing them to Nigeria. My mission is to go to them, have all these discussions, tell them what Nigeria, what Africa is about, before they even come down to Africa. So Amazon launching in Nigeria was a whole process. We had a discussion for over 18 months before they did come. And by the time they came, at least I believe I had schooled them enough, as well as they've done their research too. But if they were going to launch on my platform for Africa to see, then they had to come correct and also understand who we are. And we've done that with several other streamers. We brought Black Panther to Africa. When they did the premiere, was premiered on the platform. And that's because they do see the power we evoke in Africa. And so before you'd have films that would premiere everywhere else, but in Africa. And so just changing that narrative, that mindset about who we are is our mission and is continuous.
Thank you so much.
So I was listening to them and thinking about me and about Brazil. And I think about changing the narratives in Brazil is something because, as you know, Brazil is one of the huge countries out of Africa that has the biggest Black population. But making movies, making films in Brazil still is something that is up to an elite and white people are doing. So when we think about changing the narrative around Brazil, of course we have this incredible Black people that are so talented, that have a lot of creativity and art spirit. And I think changing the narratives is how can I work hard to make difference, to make these people they can make their own movies. They can tell our own stories, because our stories have been told by people that are not Black people, that are not indigenous people, that are people from the elite of Brazil. So in the last 20 years, we are trying to change it. And of course, I've been working with the productions of audiovisual content since I was young. It has been all of my life. But I started as a student and then as producer assistant, as most of us that work in this industry of films. But when I realized that I could really make films and put my ideas, my creative ideas, that happened when I found APAN in Brazil. APAN is the Black Professionals Association. That it started at 2017, I think, 2017. So it has been just a few years. So everything is so fresh for us. And we need to work hard, and we need to work together. That's why when I realized that I could really make some difference, working together with other black professionals in Brazil. So when I started, it changed completely my life and the way I worked and the people who I worked with. And in 2021, I was able to reach SPCine, that is this public company that now I'm the president. I started there as an executive director. And since last year, I'm the CEO and the president of the company. So being in SPCine, I thought it was a very special, it was given to me a very, not given, of course, because I concrete, but it was the opportunity that I have been waiting for to make more different, because now I have more power. And I've been working, we changed SPCine from the inside to outside. So we started to make a lot of way of working with the people, and we try to make our team more diverse. And then we try to apply these policies to all the work that we've been doing. So for me, that's now I'm trying to change the narratives in Brazil.
Thank you so much for sharing. So if I understand correctly, it's really important to actually reclaim the ownership, because we cannot have other people tell our stories. So maybe what systemic limitations have you guys or ladies been facing that would have prevented you from doing so?
So in Africa, you have the limitations of, first of all, the mindset. What is film? What is the film industry? How do people see us? What are they ready to invest in? I'm going to use Nigeria as a case study. We found oil in the 70s, and it was such a huge boom, right? And so it was just easy for people to understand and everybody to want to go into the different aspects of oil and quickly relegate culture. I would say culture because then we didn't have such a strong film industry. Relegate culture to the side of it. Now with oil, you make really big gains and people understood it very well. And so in our industry, it's hard to see the business aspect of film. So we didn't have a lot of investors. And so everyone who had the passion and who wanted to go into film found out they had to get money from relatives. And I mean, how much can that make for you? What kind of movie would that, bring to the table? So we had the great stories. We still have tons of stories. But because the funding wasn't good enough, we weren't coming out with the best of production. Of course, that has changed over the course of the years. We have so much interest in Africa, African stories. I believe a lot of the stories in the Western world are being recycled. So everybody's coming to us. So we have that limitation of funding, which is changing, right? But then again, the infrastructural business is also very slow. We have what we call the gatekeepers who have gone on to do so much for themselves and not necessarily the industry. And this is found across Africa. And so changing that mindset to work for the industry, knowing that once the industry grows, you also grow with it, rather than you growing alone. I mean, you can only go as far if you do it for yourself. And so changing the infrastructural mindset, besides the funding, is also key. And then lastly, we have the streamers coming, we have investors coming in, and those investors and streamers are altering the stories because now they have the money. And so you'd find, there's a movie we've been talking about making, and each time we find a huge investor, the investor changes one thing or the other. They either inject a little LGBTQ, which is not going to happen, or they inject something else, that culturally it's not us. So even the investors should also understand what the culture is In some African countries, it's actually illegal to have certain things in films. So training is another thing, and it's another aspect, but that is fast improving. There's a lot of training going on, but if you check the limitations, the trainings, the funding, the infrastructure, and the mindset, all these have to we have to be very conscious of it in order to move forward. And I believe that's what we're here.
Betty, you work also with co-productions and also talk about co-financing. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can also talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Chioma. It's really about mindset. At the end of the day, one day I've decided to wake up and to make the change from my own, gaze, I would say. And I am black. I am a French national. And I said, I've got the same rights of, any white French, people are. And the fact that I am black and I can understand, because my main focus is with the Caribbean and Africa, I understand the culture. I respect the culture. I would say I'm the advocate of this culture, I would say, that made it easier for me to approach producers. So the limitation was really mindset. But once you said, I can do it as well, and as I was saying to some of the producers, I'm really overwhelmed with proposals because there is a need at the end of the day. This industry is a business industry, and we are at the stage where we do not want copy-paste productions. We want different narratives. And where we can find it is in a soul such as Africa. There's so many writers, so many opportunities, so many, viewpoints, And this is why that's the right place. And I was discussing with another black French producers, and she was so overwhelmed with proposals as well, that she had, take a little bit of break. So what I'm saying is that we should be more producers, such as ours, that understand, Africa, the Caribbean, relationship with races in general, so we can actually together build up a new industry, because it's a business at the end of the day. So we have to make sure we understand our co-audience. We have to make sure that we need to also focus on a global and bigger audience as well. And it's something inclusive. It's not about criticism. It's about telling something different to the world and to be inclusive and to be accepted.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you too. I was going to ask, because now you both are doing productions with the African content, and now you do a lot of black-focused productions in Brazil. I wanted to ask, what is... sorry. Oh my God, I lost my question. But okay, yes, now I know it again. So what do you think do you feel like this narrative of African stories don't travel, or black stories don't travel to the world, that they are not being accepted in the world, that they won't find a market? How has that changed, and what can we do more to change it even more?
I totally don't agree with this. I think our black stories can travel all over the world. And I think we need to see more black stories. In Brazil, the content from Africa that are arriving for us, because that, I think we have this huge problem. We have this global industry, but we are still seeing the same things. So I think we need to improve more and more this circulation of this content. The streaming provides it. So it's easier today for people, for a young girl in Brazil, to watch something from Africa. For me, when I was young, it was impossible. I didn't see, I didn't have the access. And I'm not so old, but I didn't have the access. And now we have, but we still have to change the mindset. We still have to support this content, to be in the world, and to know that people want to see it. In Brazil, now we are seeing content from Africa, and they are making huge success because Black people want to see other Black people. We want to see Black people that went well, that runs well, that are great, are beautiful, and they are not poor, and they are not desperate. We want to see all kinds of narratives from Black people. So I think what we are trying to make is to make more connections between Black creators, Black producers, to improve this audience all around the world. It's not easy at all. When I started to work at Especini was already a huge, a great company, a public company. I think we are the most important public company for audiovisual, for cinema in Brazil, and in Latin America as well. So when I started to work then, it was 2021, Especini already has this internationalization program. So we have a team that traveled here to Berlin, to Cannes, to LA, but it was just like this. And what we started to make is, no, we have to go to other parts of the world. We want to talk with the other producers, to make the Brazilian content, to get to other places. So we start to make this international missions to other parts of the world. So we went for the first time at 2022 to the Africa continent. We went for the first time to Afrif, to FESPACO. So, of course, there's already some professionals in São Paulo that has already went to this place, but for an official mission, it was the first time. So it was, I'm talking about 2022.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yes, 3 years ago. So we have this, we just have a lot to do. And I truly believe that we have to improve our connections, to make more co-productions, because we almost don't have co-productions. It's absurd that we don't have co-productions between Brazil and Africa. We just have a few examples, just a bunch of, I don't know, 20 films, perhaps. So we just have a lot to do. Because when I truly believe that we need to build this bridge between not just Africa, but all the diaspora. We have this influence of American Black culture in Brazil, as well as a lot of other countries in the world. But even with the American Black people, we don't have co-producers, we don't have exchange knowledge, exchange creativity content. And I believe that we need to get it stronger all over the world with the Black producers and Black creators all over the diaspora. So I think that's a huge thing to do, and I think that's how we are going to make this Black content travel all over the world.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I feel like both of you want to chime in on that, since you already have the mic.
I'll give you an example of films that have traveled. We had the Black Book that was in 64 countries. In the first week, it was on Netflix, and it stayed on for weeks. We've had Gangs of Lagos. We've had The Burial of Kojo. On and on. So I don't know why this narrative of African stories can't travel. I just believe there's a huge conspiracy. Maybe I'm a conspiracy person. It's true. because we do so much. I would like to see a bonding of blacks across the world. If we begin to think that way, like she said, the number of blacks in Brazil, I found out in Mexico they had 40 million blacks. Mexico. We have blacks all over. Why don't we become that superpower? How do we come together to produce, co-produce, watch our own stuff, stream our, invest in what we are doing? The more we do that, this case of diversity and inclusion, at least for Africa, goes down. We don't even believe, I don't believe in so much of diversity and inclusion because I believe in the power of blacks across the world. And so when we have that, we are our own force. We need to be that force. I think more of our conversations now should be channeled around being that force because we can. I don't know.
Thank you so much for your strong words. So maybe Betty, because you're practically doing that.
I do think that we can be as strong, as the South Korean, for instance. And for instance, my daughters, I try to understand why they were so into South Korean films. And they told me, Mom, it's because of a story, it's so unpredictable, So it's probably, we should probably go to the genesis and understand, how can we make it better? How can we be more professional? Trained in a different way, and everything comes from the writing at the end of the day. So if we have strong writers and we have a strong production value as well, and we mixed the authenticity with this technicality, and obviously we have strong distributors, we'll be able to make it happen. And we'll be able to build stronger stories, It's not about black stories, it's about stories in general that have to be watched, have to be seen by everyone, since we are doing the same.
Thank you. And so maybe in a very practical way, because now we have a lot of people here in our audience, so how do you go about reaching out to African talent? How do you find your partners?
Oh, for me, as I'm working at SPCine, we have this institutional power as well. So we try to go institutionalize this path. So that's why we are here. And I really would like to thank to Prudence that bring us to the Afro Berlin. So. And as well as when we go to Africa, or now when we go to Cannes as well as we start to go, but now we have this Afro Cannes as well, or we have this Afro Berlin. And when we go to Africa, we go with this institutional. So I think it's important because when you go with this parliament, with an entourage, it's easier for the producers to go with you. So when we start to go to Africa, we just have these big companies from Brazil that they don't need our help to come to Cannes, they don't need our help to come to Berlin. But when we said that, we are having a mission to Africa, they said, we want to go with you because we want to understand more, we want to make business, and be with you would be easier for us. So we tried this path with the all kind of institutionalizations that we can make for the producers and make them the creators as well, and all kinds of professionals they could come and be able to talk, be able to make business in a safety place, in a safety way, with support, juridical support, because international co-productions is not easy. And Brazil has a lot of different kind of laws. For us, it's a bit difficult, not just for Black, for every Brazilian people. So we try to provide this kind of support to make things easier, keep going easier for the professionals.
Thank you so much. So we are already nearing the end of our panel, actually. So we still have 6 minutes. So I feel like it's like we can have one maybe closing statement of what you wish for Black collaboration around the world, so that we can really make an impact in the next couple of years, and how we can work together on that.
Well, running a festival and having tons and tons of panels and meeting so many people, you begin to have a wish list and see a path to that. And so for me, I would like to see more infrastructural deals. We don't have one studio of sorts, at least in West Africa. We have some in South Africa, but they're all white-owned. So I would like to see that change, because whenever I go to Hollywood, the whole issue around budget for films is, oh, you don't have a studio, so you shoot in houses, so it's cheaper. And so the first thing to do is really price the films much lower than it should be, based off of, oh, you don't have the right infrastructure that would actually show that, you know, you're spending a lot of money. So I'd like to erase that.
Thank you.
To me, it's really to dare and to think global, to see ourselves as unique and able to tell wonderful stories, and to be confident at the end of the day, because we've got everything. We have the talents. We can reach out to the talents. We can reach out to us. It's incredible when you see the Nigerian industry, for instance, what they made, out of their hands and the mindset, So everything is possible, but we have to think global, to see ourselves as unique to make it happen.
Thank you very much.
So I try to end saying that we need to make business. I would love to see more co-productions between Black producers, Black creators all around the world, with France, in Africa, in the South Caribbean as well. And I would truly believe that that's something that we could build. And I would like to see it more and more, and I'm working so hard to get there.
Thank you. I think we can really say that reclaiming the narrative and breaking free from limitation, it's happening, and it will happen even more in the future. Because I actually loved your take on saying, why are we doing diversity and inclusion? Because we are the global majority. So our voices should be heard. And there's a question. I was told there's no Q&A, but if we're accepting questions, then let's go.
Hello, thank you so much. Hi, Oliveira. My name is Lyara. Lyara, I'm getting Oliveira and Lyara mixed up. Apologies. If I understood it correctly, you said that your first trip to the African continent was in 2022? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I find this absolutely shameful on the part of Brazil, firstly. As the largest contingent of blacks outside of Africa, that is unforgivable. Secondly,
I agree with you. I totally agree.
Now, thank you for being in the position that you are. However, the reality is that someone like yourself is a bit of a unicorn, if you understand that term. And so I'm wondering, what safeguards are in place, since we know that we've had quite a shift in the political climate in Brazil? What safeguards are in place to ensure that once you're not the head of your organization, that those relationships continue? Has there been that conversation? Has that taken place? Can you tell me?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. I'm just making some correction about my speech. It was the first time that we went to Africa to audiovisual professional mission. Of course, we had already, the government of Brazil and has the relationships with the African countries, a lot of African countries. And we also have these independent producers that has already had. But yes, it's a shame. It was 2022. And we are trying to make it keep going. So we are going to be at AFRIF this year again, and we made this very narrow connections in Angola. So, but I agree with you. It's difficult for us in Brazil because we have this public policies that sometimes change between some. When we change the government, the public policies sometimes change. But we are trying to build. Espacini has 10 years now. We are celebrating this year the 10 years, and everybody that works at Espacini trying to make things happen and things last. So we try to make laws and to guarantee that the things that we are starting will keep going. And that is the hardest work. That is the hardest work. And fortunately, the last president of Espacini was Viviane Ferreira, that she's also a black woman. She's a director. And she passed it to me. Of course, we have to work political a lot to make this happen. It was not easy. Right now, we are changing the government of the city. We have this election last year. We have the same mayor, but a lot of people in the government has changed. And I keep going. So this is I think it's the hardest part, how to make things doesn't disappear when the government changed. So we are very attempt to this.
Just to corroborate her story, in 22, when they first came, she wasn't the head at the time. Yeah. So they've been consistent, 22, 23, 24. So I believe that even with the change of government, it would continue.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So we have one more question here.
Okay.
Yes, you need to own the means of production and do co-production. There's still no international sales agent out of Africa or even black here at the market. You've got to be thinking about distribution, owning the means of distribution, and within your own countries, perhaps you're a distributor. I don't know. Even in US, Ava DuVernay said, I'm going to do distribution before she said she'd do production. But she distributes to festivals. Festivals don't make money for the filmmakers. So do you have plans? Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you have plans for ways to distribute these films once you get them made? Because you're dependent on Netflix to pick them up or some other distributor here who is inclusive. You've got to own your own means. Do you have plans?
I'm one of 2 aggregators for Amazon out of Africa. The festival serves as that. There's also Netflix. But then, in terms of cinema, I believe the largest cinema group in Africa, Film One, not Africa, in West Africa, Film One is in Nigeria, and they're serving the purpose of the cinema chain. But then there are other cinema chains too, not just as large. You're very right. Our distribution is still trying to understand itself and grow. But then again, we have Showmax. One thing about Africans is that when they latch onto something, they really do go for themselves. So with Showmax, even though it's so young, it has surpassed Netflix in Africa, and also Amazon, of course, is not even close. It has over 20 million subscribers, and that is really, really huge for the continent, and it's all Black-owned. So I believe we're growing, slowly but surely.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we really have to wrap it up. Thank you so much for being on this panel. Thank you for sharing your insight. The room is really, really full now, so I believe we can get into more discussions after the panel. Thank you so much for being here.